Woo. Whoa, no wonder. Ja, ben.
Low key, start moving like you know me. I be on my time on my own speed. Got my eyes on the ones that plotting on.
All right, so I've got a good one for you guys today. Struggle habits. Because, I've seen a lot of people talk about struggle food, but I'm eating good food. I just live like shit, All right, so I'm gonna start this video out by saying I'm probably one of the poorest creators on this platform. Aside from like a literal homeless dude, I'm pretty piss poor broke. Hey, you got any change? No. How about you? You got any change? I could certainly be using a few fucking dollars right now. Where's my change? So, I've compiled a bunch of tips that have personally helped me out in life, so you don't end up like this homeless guy on the side of the road begging my broke ass for money. So, starting this out is one that I do almost daily. So, you wake up, you got your one pair of dirty ass socks. They got like 4 massive holes in them and shit. Now, when you wear your socks enough, eventually they get dirty enough to the point where they kind of harden, right? Now, that's the point where I'm kind of like, damn, I need to wash these fucking things. I'm about to get no bitches in them. And that's a problem. So, what do? Well, I don't own a washer or dryer, and if you're as poor as me, odds are you don't either. So you wash them bitches in the sink. Sometimes I just throw my clothes in the dishwasher. Now, honestly, that's nothing special. The drying part is the special part. Now, you gotta do what you gotta do to dry them bitches out, all right? Because I need a pair of socks right now. I need a pair of socks for today. So get yourself a little skillet, you turn on the heat, and you're making yourself some socks. That or use the microwave. But the microwave's a little more complicated. You gotta like open the door and close it, and then open the door and close it after like 30 seconds each time. It's a whole process. But if your dryer is broken, I'm telling y'all, put them in the microwave, and you can dry them bitches pretty quick. Next up is drying yourself, because I take a shower every day. Right? I can't wake up without a shower. Now, if you're like me, you have no towels. You do, but they're all dirty. So, legit struggle tip number 2, get your blow dryer out. I've been drying my whole body with a blow dryer for probably about like 2 years now. It works. It takes a while, but it works. You're gonna be there for probably about 20 minutes, but hey, eventually you'll be dry. Now, legit struggle tip number 3 is holes in your shoes. I have a massive hole in my shoe, in my Jordans. And yes, I wear these daily. I took them to a cobbler, and the cobbler said, oh yeah, we couldn't get nothing to stick on these. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? It means we couldn't fix your shit. Okay, can you sew them? No, our sewing machine's broken. Okay, can you hand sew them? No. How is your only job to fix shoes and you can't fix my shoes? Like, that's fucking insane. So I sewed them bitches myself. That's the real tip here, is sewing. When you're broke as shit, sometimes you gotta sew up jeans, shoes, and especially socks. Now, legit struggle tip number 3 is cutting your own hair. My haircut is nothing fancy. I just trim it up with some trimmers, and I think it looks good. Now, I understand some people gotta do some fancy shit to get their hair looking good. My hair just kind of naturally sticks up, like it's like an afro almost. Not really an afro, but it's like, it's got the same vibe as an afro. And well, shit, that works. Now, legit struggle tip number 5 is making do with what the fuck you have. Now, I'm gonna give you a prime example of this. It was winter time. My windows were completely iced over. So, what did I do? Well, I took the bottom of a Pringles can and started scraping the ice away from my truck. I had to go to work. And I will say, over the course of like 2 or 3 years, it still hasn't scratched up my windows, cleaned the ice off my truck with a fucking Pringles can. Alrighty, moving on to number 6. And this is one that I think everyone should be doing. Number 6, check for credit card skimmers. Imagine you're at a gas station, right? And you live in a shitty area. You're fucked. That's just it. You're fucked. If you're a city dweller, odds are you've got like those cards that's tap to pay, where you just tap the screen, it pays like that. But if you're from a poor area, you probably don't have that. Like, I know I don't. I have to use a community bank because there's no fucking banks around me. And guess what? I'm left with a fucking chip. So do what I've been doing for the last actually 5 years now. Tug on that shit. Tug all around it. See if that shit's gonna come off.
No, sorry, please, you're not to do that. You cannot touch.
Because I have been fucking snaked before. I'm not getting snaked again. It's like STDs, yo. You gotta check that shit. I'm not about to stick nothing in nothing if it's not tested. Moving on to number 7, you got your food stamps. Now, in my opinion, if your family's not on food stamps, you're rich. Like, that's just how that goes. Like, my definition of rich is not on food stamps, and that's rich. So struggle tip number 7 is rice, beans, and chicken. That's just it. No more explanation needed. All right, struggle tip number 8. Now, there's been times where I've had to sleep in my car just because I didn't have a place to go. Now, if you've ever slept on your car before, you would know that heat is like the sun from that one fucking Mario game actively trying to kill you. You wake up in a puddle of sweat, windows gotta be rolled down and shit. Roll the windows down, fucking like 4 different mosquitoes fly in. So, what do? Well, cover the windows with blankets if you can and park in the shade. And honestly, when you have nowhere to go, parking in the shade is way harder than it sounds. Now, back when I used to sleep in my car, my local hospital had a small parking garage that I used to just sleep in, just to stay out of the sun. If you ever lived in your car, you know how bad it is finding fucking shade. Yes, ladies and gents, I wasn't fucking around when I said struggle habits. I grew up poorer than those. Number 9 is bed bugs and cockroaches. Now, listen, roaches weren't that bad, all right? Them bitches were just chilling in the sink. What? When it comes to bed bugs, though, that's the reason I moved out. Them bitches were fucking trifling, son. You wake up scratching your legs and shit, looking like you have 4 different fucking diseases. And let me tell you guys right now, them bed bugs stand on fucking business, son. The only tip I can really give is don't take furniture from Goodwill or the side of the road. And if you go to the movies, check your clothes thoroughly afterwards, because sometimes there's some bummy people that go to them theaters. Number 10, arguably the most important tip, is watch out for yourself. Because at the end of the day, when you grow up poor as shit, you're fucking on your own. You can't look at someone and say, yo, help me out, bro. They're gonna look at you like, I gotta help myself out. Like, I remember when Daniel, yes, the Daniel from 2 years ago, he was homeless and he asked me for a ride to Walmart so he could grab a tent. And I said, yeah, bro, I got you, because, you know, me and him are good buddies, you know what I mean? So he gets in my car and halfway there whips out a baggie of snow, a gun, takes a bump, just all my car, on the highway, looks at me and says, hey, bro, I gotta go bust this sale real quick, G. What? Bro, I was taking you to get a tent at fucking Walmart. Needless to say, I did help him bust that sale, allegedly. And he didn't even want a tent from Walmart. He just went back. He told me he was sleeping under a bridge that night. A little fun fact, I guess. He moved down to Florida and he has a kid now. So, hey, Daniel, I know you watch my videos sometimes. Congratulations on the kid, man. Daniel's not his actual name. I don't think he'd want me using his actual name in that video, but, you know. Still, congratulations, man. Anyways, look out for yourself, ladies and gentlemen, because he could have fucked me over there. Imagine I got pulled over. Hey, bro, hold my bag real quick. Like, there's been many, many times where I've helped somebody out and got fucked for doing it. Little piece of advice, keep your friend group small, because when you grow up poor, somebody always wants something from somebody. But the one thing I will say is there is nothing that can compare to a close friend when you both grew up from the mud. I'm not going to sit here and say I had it the worst, because I know people that have had it worse than me. Alrighty, do me a favor, join the Discord server. I'm actually giving away a brand new free Toyota RAV4 to a random person who joins. That's a fucking lie, by the way. I'm not giving away shit. Thank you to all my patrons. I actually plan on uploading special videos there soon, so stay in touch for that. Thank you all so much, and special shout out to Gypsy. Thank you guys so much for helping me out. I mean it, you guys fucking rock. So in conclusion, be born rich. What's the problem, y'all? Shit, it's that easy, guys. Have a good day, guys.
So I'm writing an essay on cats. Cats in art history. I'm an art history major, and this final is due on Friday.
We're back. I'm going to jump into a bunch of games to see the meta because it's one of the big 3 main tournaments now for everyone. It's open to everyone. I want to jump into some open games, but also some finals games. I'll start with the finals first because it'll be much more interesting. I think an all Polish team right here, Darm, Demush, Harry, and Cami is the perfect way to start things off. All right, the first thing that's quite interesting about squads is that you're actually unconned way more than in any other game modes because of the amount of drop spots, right? Obviously, there's 20 teams that you've got in here, and there's 9 POIs total. You know, if it was duos, for example, and you have this kind of split, I think every team here, oh, that's a duo landing there. Here, that's 2 duos. Sorry, I meant 2 duos, 2 duos. But in squads, it's actually not that bad to get a POI. We were landing at Evergreen yesterday, and this is a really bad example because, as you can see, there's 10 teams in this one area, but it was actually okay because, you know, you and one other team will be there. This might have 2, this might have 2 or whatever. But in squads, you're kind of relatively okay landing at POI rather than a split. If you land at a split, you're kind of just absolutely screwed because you're going to be contested for the most part anyway. But you might as well risk going or chance trying to get a whole POI like this. So Cammy in this is ended up getting donut, totally chilling. I actually have no idea what is going on over here. Oh, is this a slurp truck spawn? I think there's a slurp truck spawn on here, so all 4 of these guys are on it. That's not who you want to be spectating. One of the biggest things about off-spawn and squads in particular, now that the map is smaller, is that the games go faster, so you don't have as much time to actually get your materials. So the fact that Cammy's instantly going straight for the metal, very good. Same thing with brick. I don't know the brick spawns in this area and whatnot, but hard mats are so hard to find in this season in particular. If you have a drop spot like Donut right now, where they're able to get them instantly, it's something you have to prioritize because in squads, there's no real mobility. I guarantee these guys are probably not going to carry full mobility. It'll probably just be double weapon, triple heal for all 4 of them. So having some form of way to get as maxed mats as possible is very, very, very useful. All right, I said this, and then as they've left, what Cammy has currently, he has 2 fish. So he has managed to take 2 dash fish. Harry has 3 of the Slurpees. Demush also has a fish. I don't know if you just farm up. No, there's no fishing spots down here. There's only fishing spots on the right side of the map. He's managed to find 2. So there's 4 fish between them. So maybe they're actually going to use it. Maybe I spoke a little too soon here. We're going to see. Since Zone is pretty much just pulling south and they're in Donut down here. Yeah, they've basically just got a little surge base set up. No, you don't really need to do a huge amount for surge. If you watch my main channel video, the one I put out most recently, you'll realize that surge isn't really that important this season because of the smaller map. Players are fighting more. You know, there's not really much trading and whatnot. But this is obviously a win format, so people are playing a little bit more passive. So if you pull in the south zone, just spending some time doing a base like this to make sure you're above surge is a good idea. Basically, everyone else down here is still kind of doing this as I'm flying around. All the south teams pull a zone, basically just box up on top of your base in that area. Extra mats. That's about it. We'll also go through the loadouts quickly here. No one's running Ranger. Ranger is pretty good, actually. I was using it yesterday. You got to hit shots, which I was not, which is also a problem. But there is quite a bit of diversity. Obviously, 3 thunder pumps, and then Cammy's running tack. Like, tack is still insanely good, especially for Cammy, who's like, I imagine he'll be tarping. We'll see when it comes to end game, and he'll be leading. So you don't need to give him the banginator of a shotgun. Similarly, ammo is distributed between 2 of them. So with the suppress, 2 with the suppress, and then 2 with the purple pistols as well. So yeah, ammo distributed pretty well. Trying to basically, for squads, as carrying as many splashes as humanly possible, since they can heal the whole team. Couple minis, couple bigs. Outside of that, we'll see what the mobility items end up looking like. I like this that Cammy's moved over to the side, so we know that they were tarping up here. Because this zone has also pulled south towards them, Cammy is, do that, there you go, has built a little structure here. Now he can essentially stop players rotating through any way into Donut. If they were all here and a team rotates in this way, obviously they're going to be able to stop them. Now this zone pulls back south. Any team that tries to rotate in this way will have to rotate into where he is too. And because he's the dash fish as well, if he does get, 1v4, if he gets absolutely jumped on, sprayed out, focus wherever, he can still use that to distance himself and get away. He's running back, so I don't know if it was just a little fake base to stop people from coming that. Fortnite has changed the map size, but also has changed the number of players in every single game. So I want to do a little breakdown here. Now, this is an actual game. Shout out to Assyrian, by the way. This entire thing, all of this I'm going to do is basically on Assyrian, not actually in-game. So all the stuff you can look at on there, not sponsored, but they are awesome. Their website is fantastic. One of the things I want to look at, actually, honestly, there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of very interesting different analysis you can have from this. So firstly, there's 80 players in comparison to 100. On top of that, the map size is also way smaller. So in comparison to what it used to be, not my own one, shout out to Hollow FNBR. I don't know if they made this or tweeted it, but you can see the map is way smaller. So for reference, before, here to here, so like edge to edge, used to be 2,450 meters. Same here to here. It looks like quite square, right? So 2,450, 2,450. Now this map from like kind of top to here is 1,100 or 120, around this age, right? So it's literally half the size top to bottom there and side to side. So it's significantly smaller, and you're cutting off 20 people, which means that you're basically having way more people per POI. So everyone's way crammed in. If you played ranked or pub so far, you'll notice that there are fights, like you finish one and you're not going to spend 10 minutes before you get to the next one. Now I'll do more comparisons in a second, but the zones themselves are very different too. So as you see, first zone pops here. If I fast forward, second zone, third zone, fourth zone. So the first 4 zones, as you've noticed here, are all just the kind of standard shrinking ones. And then zone 5 is a partial. Previously it was zone 6, which was a partial, but now 11 minutes and 40 roughly into the game. Let me write that down before I forget. 11:40 first partial. So yeah, almost just before 12 minutes into the match, you've already got your first partial, which means that there's going to be a lot more action, a lot more rotation. And then you see again, 6th zone is yet another partial here. 7th, 8th. I think and then that partial. So a 7th now is the first outside zone. So previously, which I'll show you in another one, this kind of first outside zone was the 8th zone. Now that's the 7th. And then you've got your first moving zone, which is the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So there's one more moving zone, and all of the partial zones have been moved one earlier. So if we look at the other map, this here is from the previous chapter, right? So the first partial zone here, which you can see is the 6th zone this time rather than the 5th zone, is at 17 minutes 27. So 17 and a half minutes in comparison to like 11 and a half. So essentially the mid game has been not really shortened by 6 minutes, but the first partial has been shortened by around 6 minutes. You also notice this game lasted 27 minutes 41, whereas this one lasted 23 minutes. So really what was the end game to? End game here started. So I consider the end game to start here, right? A lot of people say this, but I consider this one of the partial zones. So this point here, which is now the 8th zone here, this is where the end game starts, and this is basically 6 minutes, whereas the equivalent zone here, which is the same first kind of outside moving one, is 4 minutes and 40. Maybe this game is also shorter. This game might not have gone to heal off. How far did it go? Yeah, this game didn't go as deep into as heal off, so it's not necessarily 2 minutes longer, but you could roughly say that there's 2 minutes more moving zones. The mid games are also 5 minutes shorter. So honestly, the pacing of these matches feels way quicker. You really don't have much time to like sit and do anything. There's a lot less dead time, a lot less like opportunity for surge trading. This, I must say, I absolutely love so far. I haven't played a tournament. I didn't play the eval cup, so I don't know how it feels to play yet. But just playing ranked and just watching some of the eval already, this feels I think this is great. I think this is good. However, there's also a lot of problems with this too. I'm not going to say problems. There's just a lot of changes to the gameplay. Things to consider. The first is third parties. Because the map is so much smaller and you're cramming 80 people onto it, right? Essentially, you know, I can't really even show you all 80 because as you notice, if you look at the top left here, where there's 80 people alive, right? Look how quickly they die. It goes down to 70, but a minute in because there's so many people contested, right? So from all of these drop spots, wherever you're landing, you're basically contested. Like straight away, it's very difficult to be uncontested. In particular, this would be true in an opens format where you have like tons of people in each one. So firstly, you're going to be contested. Secondly, if you're not contested, all of these drop spots are really close to each other. So one in ranked in particular that I've been noticing is this is awful to land at because if you land here, firstly, there's usually like 2 or 3 teams. If you're not, they have so many options to push into places all around them, right? And I'm sure there's other places around. Like these guys are they already rotating out? They are not already rotating out here. No. Either way, it's like, and look how many people are in Cleus. I think it's called Cleus. All the drop stops around. Very, very difficult to like get additional loot because if you're contested off spawn, you'll be fighting, and if you fight for a while, the people are so close they come to third party you. That's tough. We played ranked, and you go anywhere near mid map. That's kind of what I mentioned. This area here generally. If you're in this spot and you start a fight, if it's not over quickly, you're getting third party. And with the pistol this season, everyone's just sitting like third party, and you just shoot shots. So yeah, the smaller map size and more crammed people. You know, if for a competitive, I'm not sure how that'll be. At least I'm going to say for ranked right now, like obviously you get into fights much faster. It feels way better. Although it can be a little annoying to get third partied, but that's just kind of a side effect of having, you know, more people close together. Now on the flip side, there's also rotations that become a little bit of a problem. So there's 3 main spots I like to think of. I don't know 100% yet, but the first one is this tire here. So this is like an air vent. It can send you up. I think it gets you to around like this radius, something like this. I did test. It's close to Springfield. I could be wrong. For playing Storm, for example, like, you know, you see the size of the map. If you can basically rotate to like here, that's a pretty far rotate. So if you've got like a zone that pulls up to this northeast, for example, and you could maybe get to this point already, like you're relatively close to making your way in. So a lot of players are playing Storm a lot to try and like avoid that kind of stuff. Same thing up in the top right here with the reactors. I don't know the full distance. I think you go further from these. You know, we see a lot of players staying in this POI for a while, and then, you know, you can rotate around that. Just kind of a side effect of the map being smaller and the fact that the storm damages you. Oh, what are the storm damages actually? I've just thought about that now. Smaller, and the fact that the storm damages you. Get additional loot because if you're whereas this one lasted 23 minutes. So really what was the end game to? End game here started. So I consider the end game to start here, right? A lot of people say this, but I consider this one of the partial zones. But this point here, which is now the 8th zone here, this is where the end game starts, and this is basically 6 minutes. Whereas the equivalent zone here, which, you know, is the same first kind of outside moving one, is 4 minutes and 40. Maybe this game was also shorter. This game might not have gone to heal off. How far did it go? Yeah, this game didn't go as deep into the as heal off, so it's not necessarily 2 minutes longer, but you could roughly say that there's 2 minutes more moving zones. The mid games are also 5 minutes shorter. So honestly, the pacing of these matches feels way quicker. You really don't have much time to like sit and do anything. There's a lot less dead time, a lot less like opportunity for surge trading. This, I must say, I absolutely love so far. I haven't played a tournament. I didn't play the eval cup, so I don't know how it feels to play yet. But just playing ranked and just watching some of the eval already, this feels. I think this is great. I think this is good. However, there's also a lot of problems with this too. I'm not going to say problems. There's just a lot of changes to the gameplay. Things to consider. The first is third parties. Because the map is so much smaller and you're cramming 80 people onto it, right? Essentially, you know, I can't really even show you all 80 because as you notice, if you look at the top left here, where there's 80 people alive, right? Look how quickly they die. It goes down to 70, but a minute in because there's so many people contested, right? So from all of these drop spots, wherever you're landing, you're basically contested. Like straight away, it's very difficult to be uncontested. In particular, this would be true in an opens format where you have like tons of people in each one. So firstly, you're going to be contested. Secondly, if you're not contested, all of these drop spots are really close to each other. So one in ranked in particular that I've been noticing is this is awful to land at. But if you land here, if you're not, they have so many options to push into places all around them, right? And I'm sure there's other places around. Like these guys are they already rotating out? They're not rotating out here. No. Either way, it's like, I mean, how many people are in this? Let's go through this. All the drop stops around. Very difficult to like get additional loot because if you're contested off spawn, you'll be fighting, and if you fight for a while, the people are so close they come to third party you. That's tough. We played ranked, and you go anywhere near mid map. That's kind of what I mentioned in this area here generally. If you're in this spot and you start a fight, if it's not over quickly, you're getting third party. And with the pistol this season, everyone just third party and just shoot shots. So yeah, the smaller map size and more crammed people, you know, if for a competitive, I'm not sure how that'll be. At least I'm going to say for ranked right now, like obviously you get into fights much faster, hopefully better. Although it can be a little annoying to get third party, but that's just kind of a side effect of having, you know, more people close together. On the flip side, there's also locations that we can. So there's three main spots I like to think of. I don't know 100% yet. The first one is this fire here. So this is like an air vent. It can send you up, I think, around like this radius. Something like this. I did test. It's close to Springfield. It could be wrong. For playing Storm, for example, like, you know, you see the size of the map. If you can basically rotate to like here, that's a pretty far rotate. So if you've got like a zone that pulls up to this northeast, for example, and you can maybe get to this point already, like you're relatively close to making your way. So a lot of players are playing Storm a lot to try and like avoid that kind of stuff. Same thing up in the top right here with the reactors. I don't know the full distance. I think you go further from these. You know, we see a lot of players staying in this POI for a while, and then, you know, you can rotate around that. Just kind of a side effect of the map being smaller and the fact that the storm damages you. Oh, what are the storm damages actually? I've just thought about that now. All right, I'm actually asking Osirian the minute for that because then I'd have to sit in a 25-minute game. But one of the things that I think is very interesting is obviously Storm Surge itself has changed too. So players alive here for 3 zones. So well, 2, 3, and 4. Storm Surge threshold is actually 80, so like 100% of the players being alive. In the 5th zone, which is the first partial, is 70, 60, 50, 40, 40, 30, 30. So it's actually like way, I would say way less. But Storm Surge generally has changed. And for this tournament, win format first game, there actually wasn't any Storm Surge at all. So I do wonder if just because of everyone being closer and having potentially less loot, there's just less players alive. And you know, Surge generally didn't really need to be a factor. I will check other games actually to see if it was though. Okay, just looking at the games. Game number 2 also did not have any Surge. Game number 3 only had a warning in the 8th zone again. And then game number 4 had active Surge in the 8th zone. So like all of these 8th zones had warnings at least. This is the only game that actually had it active. Now obviously like in an FNC's grand finals, this will probably be a little bit more, you know, it'll be more stacks, let's be real, rather than just an eval finals. But it seems like with the smaller map, Surge just isn't as big of an issue, and I think that's great because let's be honest, Surge is boring and it's not something I want to talk about that much. Another very strange change, which knocking from a series just showed me actually, is the 10th zone and now the 11th zone, the one directly after that, actually the same size. So this zone here doesn't shrink, it just moves, which is quite interesting. There, that whole transition is
Tail really taking inspiration from his daily life as a role as a Vandal scout will look like. In result, we have Chemo using like devices to help him float, to get around trains, and we have shovels to dig up some treasures or whatever. We got a lot of flavor of the Vandal scout in Chemo's kit here. We want to make sure that individual tools that he has are individually fun.
My daughter is being treated for leukemia. It hit me hard. It did. Being a girl dad, it really just melted my heart.
It changes everything.
You feel hopeless at that moment.
Once we got the first initial hit, it was just straight tears, sickness in your stomach, just don't want to get up out of bed.
There's always that statement, well, you got to look on the bright side of things. Tell me what the bright side of childhood cancer is.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital works day after day to find cures and save the lives of children with cancer and other life-threatening diseases. Thanks to generous donors like you, families never receive a bill from St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing, or food, so they can focus on helping their child live.
Without all of those donations, St. Jude would not be able to do all of the exceptional work that they do.
For just $19 a month, you'll help us continue the life-saving research and treatment these kids need.
No matter if it's a big business or just the grandmother that donates once a month, they are changing people's lives, and that's a big deal.
Join with your debit or credit card right now, and we'll send you this St. Jude t-shirt that you can proudly wear to show your support.
Our family is forever grateful for donations big and small because it's completely changed our lives and it's given us a second chance.
We are not going to give up hope until every single patient has that opportunity for a cure.
You can join the battle to save lives by supporting St. Jude.
I did everyone's favorite thing, and I did a chart. Again, thanks to Assyrian. They sent me a lot of the data on this so I can look at it. Now, what's really interesting here is how things have changed just based on. So what I've done is I've put like new, old, new, old, new, old, as you can see. So firstly, let's look at the times. So the new one is in seconds. That's 1,290 seconds, which is around 21.5 minutes, roughly, which was 26.5 minutes. Of course, it might be a little different because this first zone here, which is like zone 0, sometimes the time for that like 6 seconds isn't, you know, you're in the bus and all that kind of stuff. Roughly, so we've lost, how much have we lost? So we've lost 290 seconds, which is 4.8 minutes. So basically 5 minutes have been cut off of the game. Where that has happened, as you can see, I've split this into shrinking partials and moving zones. So the shrinking zones have lost 350. So that's, you know, what is now 1 to 4, and it was 1 to 5 before. The partial zones, there's still 3 of those, and they're actually exactly the same. But as I said, they were just moved 1 zone earlier. So previously that was zones 6, 7, and 8. Now that's 5, 6, and 7 instead are partials. So they're just the same length, just moved 1 zone earlier. And then there's an additional moving zone, as I also mentioned there. So that starts in zone number 8, which, as you can see, like they're offset by 1 here, right? With like these, this is the zone radius, the zone size. So what's strange is that 10th and 11th zone is the same size. So it's like they've just added this moving zone here, it would seem like, just to like slap another one in, which is pretty cool. Another thing I did here was, this is just from 1 game, so very much so take this with a grain of salt, because a lot of RNG depends on a single game, but I'm not going to go through a bunch of games to try and compare. These are the players that were alive in the new eval in comparison to just the first game from the most recent one before that. And as you can see, right, like player numbers die out pretty quick, but again here there's like not much happens here between the 3rd and 7th zone. So that's kind of again getting into like those partials. That's your kind of boring mid game as in the new zones, and in the old ones that was, you know, you were kind of having like a slow drip down. But as we already mentioned, like surge doesn't really activate. Like here's the surge thresholds, you're like way below on all of them. This is why, you know, what was it, 8th where we were seeing warnings? Yeah, so like this zone here is really the only one where that actually ends up happening on. So games do seem like a lot more active. There seems like there's a lot less need for storm surge. And now moving zones are also unbelievably stacked, right? Because you've got to think, this 8th is the first moving zone. There's 49 players alive in comparison to like the 35 of previous. So these new zones are way, way, way more focused on actual end games and the early games. And they've basically cut out like 350 seconds of just boring. Now, I think these are great. I think if they only basically added a little bit more loot to the map. Because like one of the biggest issues I keep finding is that there just doesn't feel like there's that much loot. I've not done a full comparison to see exactly what. Like if you have to reboot in your edge zone because of the shorter zones, it's pretty tough. I feel like if you're contested, because you're so contested, because you're always fighting, everyone's so much closer, it's really tough to make sure you actually have enough loot generally to like play out the rest of it. So uncontested teams are definitely either way, I actually think all these changes are really, really sick. I'm very excited to see how they play out for the whole season, because again, 1 tournament's happened so far. Very early days. Let me know what you think. To be honest, if you've not played a tournament yet, you probably won't know any different. I just think the boring mid games and cutting that stuff out is super important. Like the video, use code RESA, subscribe, have a good peace. All right, Clicks and Higgs won 2 out of the 4 games of the eval cup last night in win format. This particular match, they only had 3 elims total, so I want to go through and see basically how they're able to win a game with such minimal refreshes on their materials, because I would imagine that they're going to have to play their rotates pretty perfectly in order to actually get to that point of the match. Now, if you know anything, you know they land at OXR HQ, lots of launch pads, lots of loot, lots of metal, great drop spot, nothing in particular to add to that on top of that. First thing of note and importance that they're doing is that they're creating these metal boxes up here with extra heals in them. They have a bunch of med kits, big pots, you've got minis, you've got white. So I imagine they're going to play these before hitting the launch pad in the storm later. That is my guess. We shall see. And surprisingly, that's what they do. The Higgs looking for tags up here. Clicks just threw a bunch more heals in here. You got even more big pots. They have a ton of sauce in here. Let's put it that way. So they can spend as much time here as they pretty much need. All right, 3 zones have passed. They pretty much got no tags there. But the game's only got 58 alive, as you can see right now. So early surge damage isn't like a massive priority. People are kind of just being a little bit, getting a bit more aggressive. So they're just kind of chilling, doing not a huge amount. They rotated onto this hill here to also get some more tags. And they got a little bit onto Madden's teams who was there, but not like a massive amount. Also, apologies for, you know, this looking so dark. Fortnite Mayors has decided to make the entire replay mode basically unwatchable. Appreciate that. They basically now just rotated to this hill, which is pulled to the 5th zone, which has been great for them. And now everyone's kind of rotating into them. So at this point, they're able to get a good amount of their thirds racked up. I don't imagine the third thresholds are really that high in this game because it is just eval and there's only 53 people up. So I don't think they really need to go crazy with the tags. All right, we've got a north zone pool here for them. Bunch of people on their head. Pete's team rotating right past them. Kind of everyone's just crash padding instantly. So with these, you kind of have a couple of rough times. You can either crash pad early or crash pad late. Now this is a crash pad that I like. So they're, oops, I've switched to the wrong team. My apologies. That's also not them. Go back on them. So these floor crash pads are really nice where you just bounce off of them, and they've not got any fizz at all, right? So they only have the 6 crash pads as they rotate. Click's actually playing triple weapon, which is interesting. That's probably why they were spending so much time looting. They just didn't get a fizz in their entire game. The problem with a lot of normal crash pads, obviously, is you just fly high, but this floor ones, you're allowed to bounce, and then you can kind of slide like this and continue going. So the clips even got beamed there, right? They got beamed for 100 because that team was watching. It was kind of obvious when they placed the 2 floors, so there's a team above them that can watch. Had they high crashed there, like just done a regular old normal one, they would have easily died, right? Easily. That team would have just, like, yeah, you know, easily wiped out clicks from that single crash pad. So the fact they bounced off the floor kept him alive and then got them ahead into this rotation. This also allowed them to time the refarm. The thing I like that they're doing a lot, though, is they're continually looking behind them. You gotta remember with this meta is everyone's fizz crashing, you know, they're always making enough rotate. It's really easy to get your head landed. So you have to repeatedly watch behind you. So, you know, where Higgs is walking forward, he's the one kind of looking in front as he's targeting. And his job has to be to make sure they don't get landed on, right? So if you're the person following, you have to continue to look behind you, look up to make sure teams aren't just crash padding straight onto your heads as well. Refarm was good. They've now got in on this and rotate into the 6th zone, still with 123 and 128 builds. So looking really good. Still also with like 4 crash pads left as well. All right, where's 7th zone going to pull? Max. Okay, so let's see. I love the instant rotate here. Instant crash pad. Thing is, if you go straight away, a lot of people are just going to be focused on, oh, get the balls. What a name. A lot of players, that's actually extremely greedy right now, I must say. Okay, let me have a look. Let me go back 1 second. So let me talk you through this rotate real quick and why that is so risky here. All right, as they've rotated, so the first thing they do, they land. So as you notice, there's all these teams behind them straight away. Okay, let me get the old camera out. They've crashed. How many teams are back here? You know, we got 5, 6 teams all back. So they've rotated instantly, and obviously they're ahead already, right? All these teams are behind them. They've done a good job of not being right next to the edge of zone. So they've gone instantly. If a single one of these teams also, like, say, instantly fizz crashes or uses a crash and slides, they'll be right on them. Eggs and Clicks are just standing in the open, just spraying. Well, excuse me, like, I'm talking about, you know, they're being really careful about not getting teams landed on their head, but that's an extremely risky play. Because they're ahead, again, they can keep kind of refarming, which is good. Like, at these points in the game, 6th and 7th, you still have some time to refarm if you are aware. Especially if, like, in this instance where they went straight away and went really early, like, most teams will either go early, straight away, or they will wait to the very end, like, where the zone starts to move and then everyone goes at the same time. It's kind of odd for teams to do this kind of in the middle and make a big rotate, and if they are, they're going to stagger and use a bunch of mats at the same time. So you actually have a little bit of time to go and reharvest as they go there. So that's kept them up. So 110 and 117 mats just going into the 7th zone where it's about to close. 8th zone's about to pop. In pressure from Muzzin up above. They don't seem to be too worried about that. Where's the zone going to pull?
If you bought a phone charger recently, it probably supports fast charging, and you probably still have some slow chargers lying around. I've heard people say that when you charge overnight, you should use the slow charger, because fast charging supposedly hurts the battery more. There's also a saying that keeping your battery between 30 and 80% is the healthiest range. So, does fast charging actually damage your battery? What's really the best way to charge your phone? Does battery wear slower? And at what point does it actually damage your battery? Today, I want to experiment to find out the answers. First, we prepared 6 iPhone Pro and divided them into a fast charge group. Then we opened them up and measured the battery capacity of each one and installed our custom software called the discharge loop. Once the app starts, the phone begins running the program to drain the battery. When the battery drops to 5%, the app sends a signal to the relay connected to the charger, telling it to close the circuit and starts charging. Once the phone reaches 100%, the app tells the switch to open again and stop charging, then starts draining the battery again, repeating the cycle endlessly. Since each cycle charges 95% of the capacity, we count that as the 0.95 of the full cycle. After 500 cycles, we open the phones again and remeasure their battery capacities. If the fast charge group shows significantly more capacity loss than the slow charge group, then we can say fast charging does hurt the battery more. In addition, we prepare another group of iPhone 12s. These phones spring from 80% down to 30%, then fast charge back to 80%. Since each round only uses 50% of the battery, we count that as a half a cycle. If after 500 cycles, this group's battery loss is less than the full fast charge group, then we create a similar phone between 30%.
What the heck? What is this? What is this? What is this? Wait a minute. This might be tough. Hold up. Oh shit. Oh. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, what? Oh my god. Are you serious? Not even.
Time on my own speed, got my eyes on the one. You love me, I don't. I'm just.
Turns out you only need 50 pins to connect to your PC. Steam's next VR headset and Half-Life 3 might be announced today. And AMD thinks they can compete. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. Just as we're getting debuts of what the next generation of power connectors could look like thanks to DIY Ape's BTF 3.0 system, something that ASUS tends to adopt when it comes to their back to front, back to future, however they want to acronymize that. They're making it so that you only need one little set of fingers to connect to your motherboard. As you can see here, the power supply just juts right into the motherboard. And Colorful became the first example of this, where you can see you have that floating power supply on the side there that's just jammed right into the connectors on the motherboard. Here's a closer look at what it could potentially look like, but in case you're like, I don't want to upgrade to all of this. Well, if you happen to buy a motherboard that has this new BTF 3.0 connector, they're allegedly going to have a breakout board where you can plug in things like the 24-pin power connector as well as the CPU and GPU connectors, so that way you don't have to actually upgrade the power supply. But the main interesting thing here is that the whole set of fingers supports up to 2145 watts of power. I don't know why I denoted it like that. 2.145 kilowatts is what it can do with 1,680 watts reserved for the CPU and GPU. That's a lot. Even in modern standards, that's a lot of power being delivered over those connectors. Hopefully, you don't have any burning issues, but it's not quite clear how long this is going to take to debut. Based on other previous BTF showcases, we might start seeing this kind of stuff pop up at least in like test motherboards at CES. Maybe see some releases somewhere near Computex. Who knows? That's just all speculation. But hopefully this means we can get rid of Milton power connectors. That would be great. Well, in case you pick up a new laptop on AliExpress's sales and it happens to have a vibration trackpad, Microsoft's working on bringing that to have more features in this new Windows 11 beta. They're having haptic signals be part of it, where you can have your new trackpad make noises and signal intensify at you, where it's not quite clear what it's gonna happen with. It says things like snap windows, align objects, so essentially maybe it's gonna go whenever you get that done, but it's very similar to something like Apple's Force Touch trackpad that uses their haptic engine. I think so. That's a tear down of that. I personally forget that a MacBook has a Force Touch trackpad until it's powered down, and then I try to click on it and I'm like, oh, right. All of the sensations and experiences I'm feeling on this laptop's trackpad are fake, and my brain doesn't know the difference at all. It's crazy how good they've gotten that. And Google's trying to get Android ready for computers because it's being reported that Snapdragon X Elite chips are being debuted in laptops that have Android's operating system on them. So the Snapdragon X Elite were developed for Copilot Plus PCs, and now it looks like they're going to be expanding beyond that to what's essentially supposed to be the replacement for Chrome OS, if I recount correctly, where Android's now going to be the kind of all-encompassing operating system for things like those smaller laptops. But it's a big day for ARM processors because Minis Forum announced an ARM little home server thing, which is pretty cool. I don't have that here for hot news, but also today we're supposed to be getting the announcement of the Steam Frame VR headset, which, in case you're wondering why is that a big thing for ARM, it's supposed to be running ARM, which is wild considering that it's supposed to have a lot of the same game support that a Steam Deck does, which is currently based on x86 architecture. So if Valve has been doing the work to get ARM game support working for video games as well on their VR headset, that could have a huge revolution in the hardware industry where you wouldn't necessarily need to be stuck with AMD or Intel for things moving forward. NVIDIA's new chips could actually be